from TV5 Wrestling Action, 11 o'clock Saturday.
Talking Memphis Wrestling with Randy Hales and special guests.
Yellow again, everybody. Randy Hales. Man, there was conspiracy theorists all over the place. They thought yesterday was going to be the end of the world. But guess what? We are still here. Yay! I want to welcome to the show, as Michael St. John will be here in just a little bit. This will be a packed up show, a great show, man. We're loaded to bear, not only as we will talk and wrap up WrestleMania, we'll talk about numbers for WrestleMania, and this show is built, this show is driven by Memphis Wrestling. Here is one of the co-hosts, one of the big shots is Randy Dandy. Randy West is in the house. Yay, Randy Dandy. And Thomas Lemon says, rockin' and rollin', a little fuck you too. Greg White in the house. Jeremy Gibson is in the house. Todd Alexander in the house. And we're fired up. And here's Pat Trammell.
There you go, custom made from head to toe. One more time. Before the eclipse, after the eclipse, it shines forever. RH. Hello again, everybody.
LL, hello to you. Hope you are here and fired up. As BC says hi to Pat, BC says hello to everybody, and Jeremy says hi to Pat. Pat, you're over like a rover, man.
It's about, I had a tough part of the week. My Crimson Tide got beat, and then Kentucky lost their basketball coach, and they came after my basketball coach, and my basketball said he don't give a piss about nothing but the Tide. He's staying in Tuscaloosa.
Did he say those exact words?
No, but that's what Roll Tide Willie says, so that's what I say.
Okay. All right. Lot going on. We might get the Kentucky coach. The rumors are there that
I think he's there, man.
Is headed to Razorback country, the other part of the state. And I don't claim them at all. Hope you enjoyed from Dinner with the King, that little video, and there's a thread of the show from the Jerry Lawler podcast, and we will come out of this video right when Lawler does his interview about the world title. Lance does our opening toast to Dave, and we'll come back to me and Pat. This is Dinner with the King. Play the video, please.
Russell and Gordon Soley with Dave Brown right along ringside. We're ready to go with another big day. I like it right from my very opening match, Gordon. Ooh.
Hello again, everybody. Lance Russell and Dave Brown right along ringside. We're ready to go. By golly, with another big day of championship wrestling, David.
Boy, I tell you, we're going to start it off today with Dutch Mantell in here.
Hello again, everybody. Lance Russell and Dave Brown right along ringside. And by golly, we're ready to go with another big championship wrestling. But there is something special, and we'll get to that in just a minute, Dave. What do we got coming up?
All right. First of all, let me tell you.
Hello again, everybody. Lance Russell and Dave Brown, and we're right along ringside, ready to go with another big championship wrestling. Good morning, David.
Boy, good morning. I tell you what, we have got quite a day coming up here today. A couple of tag team matches.
Well, I tell you, if it is, it'll be the first one you've had around. At least you got, being a little more of a gentleman than you are, it saves me from saying what I would like to do with those records and earphones. We'll take time out and be back.
Hi, this is Lance Russell, and in just a moment, we'll be running to ringside by golly to pick up the action on a lot of matches that we've got lined up for this championship wrestling. By golly, when you get an opportunity to see Jerry the King Lawler and Bill Superstar Dundee together, it can't be bad right from the opening gun. And we're going to have that very up. Well, yeah! By golly, I hear that theme, and I get kind of all ginned up
ready
here.
to go.
I know exactly what we got. Dave's going to tell you about it.
We're going to have Buddy Landell in here in the opening match today. The Nature Boy will be here.
You know, I got thinking, Davey, that this is almost like opening Christmas presents. You never know what you're going to get. Hello again, everybody. We're ready to open up another chance. Oh, my goodness, what a group we got here today. Hello again, everybody. The exact truth. One of the hesitations I had of coming back here was the fact that I knew I was going to have to listen to that mouth that hadn't gotten any smaller.
Let all those rednecks out there because I know better, but it is good to see that nose again.
You
I will come back.
tell me that you
Mr.
are
Russell,
crazy enough.
Mr. Russell, I have a lot of money. I make
Keep running your jaw, and you'll have worse than you got right now.
Shut up, Russell.
Okay, Andy Kaufman, the loser in the match with Jerry the King Lawler.
Where is Lawler? I told you that the didn't have enough guts to come on down here. I said that the man has everybody on his side.
We
man.
would like to use this if it takes
got
place
everybody on
later on, so please watch your language, will you? Because for crying out loud, we can't use a thing with you swearing like that.
I don't give.
What a night, huh? Wow. I gotta tell you. Do you know how long we waited? Yeah, you know, because most of you have been right there with us all the way waiting. And I want to tell you one thing. For the Jarrett Promotions, thank you very much for your support. I'm delighted you were here, and I hope that you feel like that you were, because finally, after a 15-year quest, son of a gun, it happened. We have a homegrown champion right now. Let's have it for the King and the new World Heavyweight Champion, Jerry Lawler.
It's been 14 years, 14 long years that I've waited to hear that man right there call me the world heavyweight champion. It sounds, I don't know about you, it sounds good to me. Thank you.
Hello again, everybody. Lance Russell and Dave Brown. We're right along ringside, about ready to go with another big Dave Championship Wrestling. David,
We're going to open
All
with a brand
right,
new team in
back
here.
to us. Here's Pat Tremble, and I want to ask you a question. It's a very important question. Do you have goosebumps on your arms, just like I have, all over my body after listening to the great Lance Russell and that very special open that we put together today, Pat? I'm fired up. Somebody says something about being fired up. Tommy Rich do say.
I love all of that. I mean, it brought back so many memories of so many feuds with so many people, with Funk, with Kaufman, with of course chasing the belt, and hello to everybody. We've got so many listeners here. I can't say hello individually, but I want you to know I'm happy to see all of you. But yeah, I love that. I love that. It brought back a whole lot of memories of the years of Lawler here, and I thought about him winning the championship, and I thought about just that great run with Terry Funk, which I believe is probably my favorite of all.
Very good. Lance is just the best in the world. I know you grew up on Gordon Soley more than Lance Russell and didn't see Lance live as much as I did, certainly. But I mean, I'll put videotape against videotape, career against career. Lance freaking Russell is the best I've ever seen.
Oh, I'm not. You're not going to get an argument with me about that. Not at all. Lance was such a different part of the wrestling business here as opposed to, some of the great ones. I mean, I like Gordon, yeah. Bob Caudle is probably I like Bob Caudle above Gordon, but Lance was just he was the voice and the heart and soul of Memphis wrestling, and in some ways even above Lawler.
Let me tell you something about today. Today is season 2024. I think it's show number 15. But I want to tell you something, everybody. Do you know on Tuesdays when we start this show, I'm in a great mood. I'm in a fantastic mood. I am going to blow you out of mind, just at the top of the mountain type of mood. You know why? Because not everybody is in the best mood all the time on Tuesdays. Sometimes Pat's grumpy. Sometimes the audience is trying to pick a fight with us. Sometimes Adam's in a bad mood. Everybody around here at times on Tuesdays is in a bad mood, except for yours truly, Randy Hills. Now, sometimes I'm working a little bit. Sometimes Pat sets himself up. Pat, you set yourself up. Sometimes you say something on this here program, then it gives me the opportunity and the pleasure to do a promo. But I'm in a good mood. Are you in a good mood, Pat?
I'm in a perfect mood. I don't know that I ever come on here in a bad mood.
I'm working, Pat.
Until you mess it up for all of us.
Smarten up. And now you're done. See, he plays heel. That's what he tries to do. And that's not a good heel. Because I, by God, can tell you right now, without a shadow of a doubt, I am a heel.
Oh, I'll agree with that.
If it saving my life, I'll run over a son of a bitch with a car. I'll pluck his eye out of his socket. I am a heel. Get that?
I hear you. I hear you.
Carrie Crouch says hello. PJ says we want a Randy's rant, and I think you got a little bit of this is what's called stretching, because I didn't know that our man Michael St. John wasn't going to be here, so we're just going to go all over the place on this show. Our buddy Derek May sent me a Facebook Messenger, and if it's the last photo on the graphic size, Adam, I thought this was fantastic, and I think this is so true, and I mentioned this a little earlier, because look at that, Pat. I don't know if you can read it or not. It's so cool. It's a picture of Triple H, Paul Levesque, and the new WWE World Universal Champion Cody Rhodes. Underneath that, it says Sports Entertainment, rest in peace, 1997 to 2024. That in 1997 is when Vince made the mandate that the wrestlers can't say wrestling. The wrestlers and the announcers and nobody that works for that company can say pro wrestling. I always thought that was stupid. The wrestlers come to the ring, what? Wearing wrestling shoes and wrestling boots. And what do they do when they're in that ring after that bell starts? They wrestle. They're professional wrestling. Apparently, that rule is no longer effect. As that graphic says, rest in peace, Sports Entertainment. You can listen to Triple H, to Cody Rhodes, to CM Punk, and I can say a whole slew of names of people lately that said professional wrestling. I think it's great, Pat. I thought it's fantastic. It thrills me to death. Once again, goosebumps all over my body. I'm sure the crew also thrilled to death about it. Your thoughts?
Well, I am too. And my understanding of that is that at the time, who brought up all the issues with the steroid abuse was the local athletic commission, which the New York Athletic Commission, which the WWE, like territories used to, had to abide by. And so if it's a competition, you can't have illegal steroids in it. So that's why they started calling it sports entertainment. And of course, Vince exposed and admitted the business. But yes, I am thrilled wrestling is back.
It was in the 80s when the state athletic commissions, most of it, and especially in the core area of the WWF at the time, that's when that Vince admitted it. And that's been 15, 20 years ago.
That's
certainly. Right. And I guarantee you, did you ever hear Steve Austin say sports entertainment one time?
No.
He did not that I'm aware of. I think it's a great, we put up PJ's comment that said Michael Cole did say in the show, pro wrestling is back. And I couldn't be thrilled to death about that for sure.
Ahmad, hug your girls for me. Go ahead, Randy.
Ahmad, I hope you're doing good today. He is going to work on homeworks. The Punk said he was a wrestler, and I believe John Moxley did too. They wrestle. All right. And Al Tuttle says, did you see where Nick Khan said they were open to working with other promotions? And what do you think about that? I think they have an open mind. I don't think they'll work with AEW. I don't think that is well. I don't know how smart that would be. I wish they would have done a trade where Dustin could have been on camera the other night for sure. Ronnie says hi to Roger, and let's see.
I have a theory about that.
Go ahead.
I think that one way, I think, and I'm going to give you and Cornette a ton of credit for this, and mainly you, because I think it was mostly your work. I think there is money to be drawn by cross promotional invasions, et cetera, like the Smoky Mountain Power Pro feud. I think you can.
Smoky Mountain USWA feud.
USWA feud. Yeah, pardon me. Yeah, I think that can survive. I think that could survive like a USFL. I think you could have a Birmingham promotion with its baby faces and heels, and you could have a Memphis promotion with its baby faces and heels, and I think you could sell tickets in both towns, particularly with social media now.
Man, it's a different time. And of course, we did the show Saturday and Sunday night. Now that you rested up a day or so after WrestleMania, was it worth the money to buy those 2 nights of WrestleMania?
Oh, absolutely. No question about it. It was certainly worth it. I'll tell you, the WWE, and I'm supposing here, when Vince never left. I mean, he left when he had to leave. But, I think they got a breath of fresh air without somebody looking over their shoulder. I think they got some new direction. I'm going to assume that is Heyman, and I'm going to assume it is Triple H. But, I just think they're doing some of their best work now.
Yeah, I think there's no way around that. I mean, did anything either nights? Now, some matches certainly wasn't as good as others, but that's always been the case from day one of the wrestling business. You want your main events, and I know it's different because the first match is not necessarily first match quality. It's sometimes main event people in the first match, but all in all, I think it's just absolutely sensational, and I am just thrilled to death with the product that they're putting out now, for sure, aren't you?
I was very pleased with the way that they built to the main event with the night before the the tag team match the night before, and then how they spaced the matches. I thought it was great.
It was great, great thing. And once Michael gets here, because we've made our opinions known big time, Pat. So we will also have a good conversation, a big conversation about it. And I wanted to say one thing, and this is Al Tuttle. I think he's stirring up trouble between WWE and AEW because he says during the Hall of Fame, Keith Lee of AEW was accidentally put on camera when he was walking through the backstage area. You know, so many people in AEW feel Cody, and they're right, Cody Rhodes was the reason they started making money in the wrestling business for the first time in their life. They love Cody Rhodes, and that's why Ricky Starks was there. That's why Dustin Rhodes. They wasn't on camera, but there was a lot of people on there. And another interesting thing, and let's put this on here, and you're completely right, Brad. Brody Lee's kid was in the ring after the Rhodes Roman Reigns match. Because I'm telling you, I guarantee you, and I don't want to make this AEW versus WWE or admit right here on this show that I'm kind of turned a little bit on AEW, but I guarantee you, they're not as hot as now as they were. When was that, in August, when they had that big show in Wembley Stadium in England? I think that was August. I'm afraid that might have been their peak, and they're just not where they were. One of the reasons why I think, Pat, is Cody's gone. You agree with that or not? Am I giving Cody too much credit?
No, you're not giving him too much credit. I mean, I'm for him. And now I say I'm for him, but I hadn't watched it, except casually 3 to 6 months. I said this 6 months ago. You spent from the time you were 10 years old learning the wrestling business and being a part of 6 matches a week and learning, and Tony Khan has had to learn with a national TV audience, and that's just not an easy thing.
You know what? I'm going to look for a message as Brandon Baxter and I were texting back and forth, and this is what I wrote to him Sunday. He said, I've said this before, Triple H learned from Vince. Many still in WWE learned from Vince. Many learned from Dusty Rhodes. And this is to Brandon. I said, I learned from Lawler, Dundee, and Jarrett. Brandon, you learned from Akbar, Michael Hayes, Lawler, Dundee, and me. Tony Khan learned from Dave freaking Meltzer, and that is the difference in the world. We are going to stay in the state of Alabama. We went 24 minutes. Me and Pat Trammell, we covered, we waited, we were patient. We have a good audience. We have a great show, and we want to bring in one of the original panel members, a legendary broadcaster, member of many Broadcast and Radio Hall of Fame. He is Pat Trammell's friend. He is my friend. He is Team Hell's friend, ladies and gentlemen. From Arab, Alabama, right now he is He's a busy man. He's making millions of dollars, but he still made time to make this weekly appearance on this show, Talking Memphis Wrestling. Here is Michael freaking Sant freaking John.
Hey, everybody. So long. Good having you here. Bye-bye. No, I'm just kidding. Thank you, Randy. You go over the top on those introductions every week. Hello, Pat. And I have been listening on my way in from Huntsville and got back and had a meeting that ran over, as Tuesday meetings sometimes do. But anyway, hello, everybody. And got a great list of folks that are talking to us on the sideline here, and we appreciate that. But thank you, Randy. Appreciate that very much. Hey, guys, what do you want to talk about?
I've already used that line once, so you must not have been listening too good.
I was. That's why I said what I did. That's what I said what I did, brother. Anyway, it's an interesting time. I mean, I did not watch WrestleMania. I did not have the pay-per-view. I did see most of Monday Night Raw, although Joshua debuted in his first T-ball game last night. And
all right.
Yeah, so I was excited about that, but I got home and started catching the middle of it and then saw part of the replay on it. But anyway, it is, I don't think the WWE lacks for where they're going to take it from here. I just hope that they haven't shot their best shot, and now we're going to be disappointed with what we get for the days to come. And that's the only worry I have. I think that Triple H, and Randy, I heard you mention the fact that he learned from Vince, and that's true, but he was also trained by Killer Kowalski. And I think it was Killer Kowalski up in
That's
New
a worry,
Hampshire.
sir. I'm saying he learned from Vince about how to run a business.
Oh, okay. Well,
not how to be a wrestler. Obviously.
Okay. Well, the thing about it is that now they're setting up The Rock and Cody, which was a natural. I mean, that we saw that coming down the pike, the last 8 weeks. And then you've got I think the developing feud that is going to get really hot in the WWE, not that The Rock and Cody Rhodes won't be a hot feud, but I think the personal issues between McIntyre and CM Punk, and two mindsets that I think are very, very similar in the way they set up their promos and deliver their promos and their mindsets. They're almost like, well, I don't care what anybody thinks. This is what I think. And I think that could upstage the Rock and Cody Rhodes. I wonder, and I noticed something last night. I don't know if you guys.
No way in hell is anybody going to upstage anything The Rock is in. No way in hell.
All right. Is that because of The Rock of who he is, or The Rock because of the wrestler he is?
It's because of who he is. You can't take that out of the equation. Okay. You can't take that out of the equation. And numbers have gone up. And let me give you a couple of numbers. I mean, the format of this show has gone to hell, but that's okay. I want to just say to Richard, I kept it up there so I wouldn't forget it. What did you guys think about the Hall of Fame inductees? The only one I listened to at all was Paul Heyman. Michael will tell you once I send him the audio that Michael sent me his opinion of it. Pat, what did you think about Paul Heyman's speech?
I thought it was one of the better ones I'd heard. I'm a long time from childhood Thunderbolt Patterson fan, and I was thrilled that he was inducted. But I thought Heyman I thought it was a great speech.
And Michael, we'll ask you that question in just a second. I think there's just so many. I think maybe not immediately, maybe 3 or 4 weeks down the line, and for another pay-per-view, because there is history. Wrestling draws best if you use history. And it's been mentioned many, many times. Who would be natural The teacher against the student is always a great rivalry. Randy Orton in a main event program with Cody Rhodes would be great. Would be great. Seth Rollins, even though we did it, if they switch him heel, that will be great. There's just a list of people. I think down the line several years from now, they could, if they could get Ted DiBiase, if they could. There's just a bunch of people who, what I was going to say, if they could get Triple H in the ring and do the deal, there is just so many people out there. Now go back to Paul Heyman and your thoughts when I sent you that audio.
Well, you swerved me a little bit by the direction you just went. And by the way, I think on the horizon, I see Triple H versus The Rock somewhere down that road. But anyway, getting back to the Paul Heyman thing, I thought, and Randy, as soon as I watched it, I text you immediately. I thought that was the greatest Hall of Fame acceptance speech in the history of Hall of Fames. Not only wrestling, I'm talking baseball, football, college football, whatever Hall of Fame you wanted to be in. I thought he was masterful on the mic. Now, we know that he can that he can shoot extemporaneously, and he has a great vocabulary, and he knows how to put words together. But I saw him looking at notes quite a bit, and I think he purposely had notes to go exactly with what he was saying and doing. And I mean, I'll be honest with you, I was so blown away by the Hall of Fame speech by Paul E. Dangerously, as he was when he was with us in Memphis. I went back and watched it again, and I didn't find any flaws in it. Other than the fact that I think he's the first Hall of Fame inductee that ever told the world that they could kiss his ass, or what was it?
No, I can't say on this television, on this show, I can't say it. I'm sorry.
Yeah. You can go. But my point is, Randy, I appreciate you sharing that with me because I did not get to watch the Hall of Fame. But Saturday morning, as soon as I watched that, I texted you back. I thought it was incredible.
We have a running thread at today's show, and Pat knows because he's seen the first thread, and we'll come in and out of this, and our audio will be working. Our microphones will be hot during this thing, and I'll set up Mike on what we're doing. It is going back to just a month or so after the great Lance Russell passed away, and it's Jerry Lawler's old podcast, The Dinner with the King, and we started with outtakes. They did about 3 minutes of Lance opening the wrestling program. It was a great thing, and then we go into the audio of Jerry Lawler and his co-host talking about Lance Russell. Again, we're not going to pay real long pieces of this. We're just going to do it in threads throughout the show. So, Adam, when you find a good stopping point after a certain story about a minute and a half in, just come out of this, and we return to Dinner with the King on Talking Memphis Wrestling with Michael, Pat, and myself, Adam producing.
Paul Diamond and Michael Lee. It'll be our first look at them on Championship.
Well, here we are for A Dinner with the King, episode number 29. It's titled Thank You, Lance Russell. And I'm Glenn Moore, joined here by WWE Hall of Famer Jerry the King Lawler. And before we get into the show, I know you don't hear the barbecue sounds. You don't hear the forks clanging or the people walking around in the background. It's because we're not at the barbecue restaurant today. We wanted to devote this episode to Lance Russell. And a lot of people maybe listen to the podcast that know Jerry for popping in on the pre-show and also the Attitude Era Jerry the King Lawler. But there's a whole history of Jerry the King Lawler decades before you knew him in the Attitude Era or even know him to this day. And when you listen to those clips and you go on YouTube and you watch Jerry the King Lawler from his time to Memphis, for Memphis Wrestling, I'm 99% sure that you are going to be hearing the voice of the man that we're going to be talking about today, and that is Lance Russell. And King, I know, usually we start off with some jokes to start the show before we get into our topics for the show, but I I wish we had a lighter subject to talk about, but I wanted to do a Lance Russell episode so bad. I wanted to have Lance to come on, and I know that's not possible now, but I think we can do a pretty darn good job remembering Lance in this episode this week.
Yeah, I think so as well. And I like you, Glenn, I kick myself for not asking Lance sooner. You just said this is episode number 29, and Lance would have been more than happy to be on any of our previous episodes. And, he's just a great guy, would never turn down an opportunity to get in front of a microphone or a camera or anything like that. But, yeah, Lance Russell passed away this past Sunday. I take it back. Lance passed away this past Tuesday here in Memphis, Tennessee, where he'd lived most of his life and most of his career here on Memphis, Tennessee. After he retired, he moved down to Pensacola, Florida, but he was back in town, and the circumstances with Lance and his passing really have made this a extra tough week, because as you can imagine, over the years Lauren and I have become great friends with not only Lance but with Lance's entire family, his son Shane, his son Rusty, and his daughter Valerie. And I basically, they are a little bit younger than me, but I watched them all grow up, being around Lance and everything so much. And about a year ago, Lance's daughter Valerie found out that she had cancer, and she battled it for this entire year. And just about a month ago, she really took a turn for the worse and got very ill. And so then Lance, I guess, he had come up and he would come up from Florida on at least a monthly basis and visit with Valerie and his son Rusty, and Shane, of course, lived in Florida with Lance. They would come up and visit Valerie, and I don't think that Lance ever Valerie didn't allow him or didn't let him realize, really how sick she was. So then this past week when Valerie was really getting bad, they sent for Lance. Shane brought Lance up, and just the oddest circumstances. It was on this past Sunday morning. Lance was up and staying at his son Rusty's house. Lance got up in the morning and fell in the bathroom and broke his hip and broke a bone in his neck in the fall. And so they took Lance to the hospital, and he was in a tremendous amount of pain. And so they pretty much had to get rid of the pain. They put him on morphine pretty strong and it basically just kind of knocked Lance out. But that's how much pain he was in from that fall. And then like about 2 hours after Lance fell and was admitted to the hospital, his daughter Valerie passed away. And so we talk about that with Lance's son Shane and Rusty, and it's almost like it was sort of almost like a blessing in disguise, in the fact that I don't know if Lance could have coped with or handled the fact of seeing his daughter pass away, and at Lance's funeral or Valerie's funeral yesterday, the preacher even said that it was almost like God's way of sparing Lance that grief. But at the same time, then yesterday, Tuesday morning early, about 3 a.m., I got the word from Lance's son Shane that Lance passed away at 3 a.m. in the morning, and he never really regained consciousness from that fall and from them keeping him sedated. And then, of course, Lance passed away yesterday morning, and then yesterday at 6 p.m. was his daughter Valerie's funeral. So both, Lance fell on the day that and was put in a hospital on the day that Valerie died, and then Lance died on the same day as his daughter's funeral. And so it's been a really, really tough week. And what we're going to talk about today is how much Lance meant to not only.
Man, talking Memphis wrestling, we like talking about WWE. We like talking about sports. We like talking about all the stuff. We like horsing around here. But the purpose of this show from day one is to educate and for us to make sure we keep up the legacy of Memphis Wrestling and we educate people on Memphis Wrestling. And we talk so many times about Lance Russell. That was powerful words on Dinner with the King, Pat. Your initial thoughts after hearing that, I'm assuming for the first time.
Yeah, that is the first time I had heard that. I mean, obviously we've had Shane on a couple times, and he and I have got a chance to spend time together. And that was just a tough week for that entire family. And I know, I know that the two of you spent hours and hours and hours with Lance, and were influenced by him in all kind of ways. But that's Lawler and Lance were synonymous as a team, really, with Memphis Wrestling. And I won't say there wouldn't be Memphis Wrestling without Jerry Lawler, or there wouldn't be Memphis Wrestling without Lance Russell. But without the two of them together, it'd be a different story to tell, and not as good a story to tell.
Before we have Michael say a word, I want to talk to his co-host on site at the location in Arab, Alabama. Go ahead and put the headsets on him real quick, if you can, as we're working on that, because I put Michael St. John, just to give him an ego, I put him over all the time, but the star of that family, the star of this show, a future broadcaster, Hall of Fame, he will blow Michael's career out of the way. Hello, Joshua. Hi, buddy.
Say hey, Randy.
Hey, Joshua.
Say hey, Pat.
Hey.
Hey.
Let him get up here so he can be close to the microphone. He's learned to use this microphone fairly well. Yep.
Yeah.
Tell him what you did last night.
What'd you do last night, Joshua?
I had my game last night.
All right.
Was that your first game?
Answer.
Was that your first game?
I had my game last night.
Good.
Was that your first game?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. That is fantastic. Did you have fun?
Did you have fun?
Yes.
That is great. Absolutely great. What are you eating, Joshua? What are you eating? Gummies? Is it good?
Tell them who's on you have to talk on the microphone. They can't see you not talk. Tell them what kind of gummies those are.
Fumbables.
Fumbables.
Really?
Funnables. Yeah.
That is good.
Whose
That
picture's
is
on the front?
fantastic.
Whose picture's on the front of that one? Yeah, but who is that?
Chase.
From Chase, from who? What TV show is that?
Paw Patrol.
Oh, Paw Patrol?
Oh.
Paw Patrol.
Oh, that is fantastic. We're having a good time here, Joshua. We kind of went with the sad story just then. Michael, your opinion about Dinner from the King and those remarkable comments and heartfelt comments from Jerry Lawler.
Well, first of all, I think that is indicative of how close Jerry was. Jerry was family with Lance, and Lance was family with Jerry. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Both of them were akin spirits. I don't think there's a Jerry Lawler as big as he became without Lance Russell, and I don't think Lance Russell is the announcer that we all cherish and love and miss without Jerry Lawler. I think they were just meant for each other, a marriage of the mat, if you would. And then you add the other, what's the word I'm trying to say here? The other focus of the Dave Brown into that, and you've got such a great chemistry, is for the lack of a better word, a great dynamic of wrestling that, put Memphis over the top. And, Randy, I love the fact that in this day and time, I had this happen to me just the other day. I was at our Tennessee station. Don't pull those off, please. I'm just trying to pull the hats off, but sorry about that. I had somebody come up to me and say, he said, the guy is a wrestling fan. He's a former state trooper. And he tells me, he says, he said, I've been watching a lot of Memphis wrestling tapes on YouTube since you went on the show with Randy and Pat and Coach. He said, I've really gained a real appreciation because Memphis was really about people and interpersonal relationships and personal issues between those people. And I think he hit the nail on the head. And I think that dynamic was all created because of Lawler, Lance, and of course, Dave Brown.
Absolutely. And in just a little bit, we'll go back and listen to more of that podcast. I have no thread for the show, and I think that's neat. And we will, before we go off the air, tell you some numbers from the business of WrestleMania, and I think you will enjoy that. I have maybe this can be considered a rant, maybe not, but it's going to be heartfelt because before we go in to this next subject, I'll be knocking a little bit here. Let me tell you what's missing. I'm not taking anything away in any way from that great spectacular we saw this past weekend. And the professionalism and the training center, all that the WWE has. But I tell you one thing, one area, one place that the WWE can't match. The Performance Center can't match in any way at all, in any shape, form, or fashion. The territory system. It's the way it was meant to be. Folks, it's great, and I completely can name you a list of people that started in the independents, or as Cornette says, the outlaw mud shows. There's a difference between independent promotions and outlaw mud shows. Usually in outlaw mud shows, you're not working with top talent. You're not working with somebody that makes a living in this business. The territories. This was wrestlers' full-time jobs. That's how you learn. That's absolutely how you learn. Doing live television every Saturday night, week after every Saturday morning, and wrestling every night, 6 or 7 days a week. And we're going to get feedback from the panel, from everybody else watching today. I am going to tell you, and these people that maybe wrestles once a week or once a month or every 3 months, that's not being a pro wrestler. I'm sorry. My definition, and sometimes it's out of your hands, I understand that, but by definition, if somebody is a professional wrestler, when they make their living out of it, it is pretty simple. I want Derek May sent me something earlier. We already showed that, but also from Paul Neighbors' Facebook page, I stole this. Credit to Paul Neighbors. I want to put out a Jarrett promotion schedule in 1982 and read along with me on this. I made a couple of edits of stuff that I knew was wrong. This is April of 1982, and follow me, because just listening to me, this is scheduled, and we did this every week. Thursday, April the 1st, 1982, Rupp Arena, Lexington, Kentucky. On Friday, April the 2nd, the Sports Arena in Tupelo, Mississippi. Saturday morning, WMC for Memphis TV. That night, the Sports Arena in Nashville, Tennessee. Sunday the 4th, Jackson, Tennessee. Monday was Memphis. Tuesday was Louisville. Evansville was Wednesday. That particular week on the 8th, Owensboro, Kentucky. Now, this is April the 9th right here today, or is this April? Yeah, this is April the 9th. And April the 9th in 1982, Jarrett Promotions was in Mount Sterling, Kentucky. And Michael, Mount Sterling's, is that near Lexington? Am I right on
Yes,
that?
it is. It is almost due east of Lexington, about 30 miles. That's a beautiful community, by the way. And their radio station will be with us next week at the ATT Morning Line in Louisville. Good people up in Mount Sterling. Great wrestling fans as well.
And that was a town, I don't know if you know it or not, the local promoter, or not the local promoter, the person that set up the town and promoted the town was the subject of our show today, Lance Russell. Then on Saturday the 10th, it was Memphis TV in the morning, Nashville, Tennessee at night. And then on the 11th, on a Sunday, so far, that was the first day off of the month. On the 12th, Memphis at the Coliseum. 13th was Louisville. 14th was Evansville. 15th was Tell City, Indiana. Friday the 16th was in Ferdinand, Indiana. Then Saturday the 17th was Double Shot of Memphis TV and Sports Arena in Nashville that night. On Sunday the 18th, off. On Monday the 19th, Memphis at the Coliseum. Tuesday, Louisville, Kentucky at the Louisville Gardens. Wednesday, the 21st in Evansville, Indiana. Thursday, April 22nd in Bardstown, Kentucky. Friday, April 23rd in West Point, Kentucky. Then also on Friday, it was Tupelo, Mississippi. Saturday, back to Memphis TV, the 24th. And the 24th that night, it was Jonesboro, Arkansas, my hometown. Off on Sunday the 25th. On the 26th on a Monday, Memphis, then Louisville, then Evansville, then Collinwood, Tennessee on the 29th. And on Friday the 30th, it was in Tupelo, Mississippi. Pat, initially, certainly Michael's run over these cards and knew this schedule like the back of his hand. As we take a look at the month of April 1982, what's the first thing that comes in your mind?
Well, is the first thing that comes in my mind is I was trying to figure out if I was a young mid card guy, how I was going to get to all those places. Now it looked like, just for our listeners, Memphis, Louisville, and Evansville were every week towns. Is that right?
And Nashville.
And Nashville.
Okay. And then you had some places you ran maybe once a month, or some where I guess some looked like some of those spot show things I did, that somebody just got something up and you had a free night.
Well, it's right. Jackson, Tennessee was a monthly town. Lexington, Kentucky was a monthly town. I want to explain about Nashville. Now, the first 3
weeks,
if
you could put it back up, because I didn't read Nashville as a weekly town.
Yeah, but I want to explain 1 week why it wasn't a weekly town. And as I explain that, why don't you go ahead and look at that as good as you can see it and see the schedule. Now, as you can see from the schedule, the fourth Saturday of the month, Nashville was not running. Now, on the fourth Saturday of the month, there was the Nashville Flea Market. Hopefully Randy West, who still goes there today, the Nashville Flea Market was actually back then in our building. So we could not run the third Thursday of the month at the sports arena because of the flea market. So the TV would play that Saturday, and then it would, instead of saying Wrestling Tonight in Nashville, they would say, certainly Jonesboro was always the fourth Saturday because of the flea market for sure. And so the Saturday TV on the fourth Saturday, the Nashville edition of the show would advertise matches for the following Thursday night. Never drew crap. It never did. If Nashville was doing $7,000 a week, it might do 15, but it was a payoff, and it would help pay for the television, the Nashville television. So instead of Nashville, Jonesboro before had for years been a Saturday night town, but when Jarrett bought Nick out, then it became a once a month town. So that's how Nashville worked. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, it does.
One thing about the flea market, and by the way, that flea market is still going on to this day and is huge. But they would use the building, the sports arena. It was originally the women's building was causing that, because the women's building was part of the fairgrounds complex that was multi-purposed. It was an exhibition hall, period. The fairgrounds arena was built for wrestling. And in fact, the fair board in Tennessee and in Nashville built it to Nick's specifications. And so it was primarily for boxing, wrestling, and other things. But like you said, Randy, and you're absolutely correct, is the flea market would come in, and a lot of the most of the quilts and that kind of stuff would be in that building because it was air conditioned, it was new, and it became the showplace of the flea market, just like it was the showplace for professional wrestling.
Territory days, do you agree with me when I say that's what's missing? And when wrestlers you saw the schedule, folks, 3 days off in a month. Now, a busy schedule for the WWE these days, and I'm not saying they don't work their butts off, and they just came off a hell of a run, obviously WrestleMania weekend. That's hard work, I can guarantee you. AEW maybe twice a week. How in the world can they be as good as somebody like Jerry? How many matches do you think Jerry Lawler had in 50 years working territories?
Oh, thousands. Because and that's not even into consideration the double shots. There were some double shots on that monthly rundown sheet, but there were many times with the rundown sheets that there were double shots in many towns, and you know, you're absolutely right, Randy. The more you do something in life, the better you become at doing it. When I was first a baby DJ back in the day coming out of college, I thought my you-know-what didn't stink. And I was the hottest thing in Birmingham, Alabama, in my mind. Now, as I got better, as I got more experience day-to-day on the air, day-to-day programming, day-to-day doing music logs, day-to-day doing promotions, day-to-day going and doing live events, I got better at it. And I dare say that 10 years after I left Birmingham, Alabama, I was better at what I did in radio than when I was in Birmingham. The same goes, it may be a little different right now because of my age and I'm starting to slack off a little bit, but I've taught people that have come behind me or that are keeping up what we did. And it's an everyday thing. What made it so good, Randy, is that the boys could do a finish in Jonesboro, for instance, Friday night or Saturday night in Jonesboro. And they could take that same finish Monday night, or not Monday night, but they could take it next Thursday night to Tupelo or to Ferdinand, Indiana, home of St. Meinrad, by the way, on the Ohio River. That's not an easy trip from anywhere, off of I-64. They could hone their craft. And if something went wrong in the finish tonight in Memphis, or the finish tonight in, what is tonight, Tuesday night, in Louisville, come Thursday night in Tell City, or come Friday night in, Camden, Tennessee, they could do the same finish because the people aren't smart enough. There was not, the internet did not exist. Facebook did not exist. So you could do the same thing and hone your craft, get better at it. And I think you're 100%, if not 110% right on that, Randy. And I see foul ups in just normal matches, and you see it too, that you would have never seen back then because the boys had gotten past that point of how they executed.
Because they were full-time wrestlers. And I'm not saying the guys today, because certainly they make a living and much more now. And certainly one thing back in the day, you would never go to a barn or go to a building and rehearse a match. Just the change of times. You didn't have time to do that. I'm not saying people wouldn't have done it. They didn't have time to do it because you're working every day for sure. I'm
Randy,
Randy Hill.
every match is a rehearsal.
Yeah.
Every match is a rehearsal.
Yeah, a lot of times I used to, if two new people that somebody's new to the territory, and say, I did this a lot with Tony Falk, and I did it with Dwayne Johnson, The Rock. He was starting on Friday, Memphis TV on Saturday. So I booked Tony Falk in a spot show and wherever the hell it was against Dwayne Johnson. We would do that a lot as well. And, it's just the advantage 100%. The advantage 100% of what we do.
Randy, you make a great point there, because you put the underneath talent or the young talent or the rookies coming up with the veterans. And that was done throughout every territory. And the veterans would teach them. If they didn't know how, the veterans, by the time they got a hold of them for a couple of weeks, they were beginning to get it and knowing how. And there were some people that fell out of this, and as well as I do, we could probably recall some names, but people that came in that we said, boy, this guy is just going to be, he's going to make us money. And 2 weeks later, it was like, this guy's the drizzling shits. He'll never draw a dime.
And let him go. That's for sure. It's just the part. There was no contracts back then. If they got mad at us, they give a 2 weeks notice. If we thought many different reasons to get, it wasn't always a firing. You just had to keep when you're a episodic week-to-week product, you have to keep it fresh. Now, most of the time you're going to keep, especially your top baby faces, and heels had a shelf life for sure. Eventually you have to blow off that program and put the baby faces over. So you can either put them with somebody else, or you can switch them baby face. There's several ways to make that work for sure. It is.
And we were blessed in our territory, Randy, to have a Buddy Wayne, or to have a Ricky. Well, when Ricky was working, his dad was the Bald Eagle. Oh, we were lucky to have people like that. Tony Falk, you mentioned, that were good at training people and showing them how to do the basics. And I'll be honest with you, I think not only is that a problem with the WWE somewhat, and I'm sure they do a good job in their developmental. I think the TNA, or the one that's on Tuesday night, the
NXT,
that's doing a decent job of that. But I'll be honest with you, Tony Khan doesn't have that. And the problem with the independents is the independents don't run enough shows in a series to keep it to where the boys get in a flow. I did an independent show this past Saturday, and Pat Trammell, I don't even know if you know, there's a place in Huntsville, Alabama called the Live Wire Arena. Well, we talked about this on one of the other programs.
No, and I want to go with you next time.
Absolutely. And I'll call you. I'll get you up there, because and it's an old chicken house that they made into an arena for tough man boxing, wrestling. And it's an independent show. They're not, but they're run by Ronnie West. Do you remember Ronnie West? Randy, Ronnie West was the original referee for Nick that went to Georgia Championship Wrestling, that did all those TBS shows. The little short guy ran around the ring, and when they'd be a count, he'd slide into the count and start the count. Ronnie West was a showman as a referee, but one of the best referees I ever read. His sons are running this, so they have a background. They have they have that education behind them. So we did 8 matches Saturday night in a 2.5, almost 3 hour window with a 10-minute intermission, and they run it professionally. If they're going to run a 10-minute intermission, it's not 5 minutes a day, 8, 9 minutes. It's not 12 minutes. It is 10 minutes.
Hey, Pat, I want you to real quick, because this is a great point. On the screen is Bo James, our friend Bo James, the king of Kingsport, Tennessee. Why don't you read his comment?
Well, I am so happy Bo's with us, and I need
He
to
watches every
get up
week.
and see. I know, and I need to get up and see Bo, and we need to go break bread again with he and his dad. But Bo's absolutely right. The only way to learn how to work is doing it night after night in front of a crowd with some across the ring from you, who's done it before.
Well, and let me throw
can lead you.
Let me throw some roses Bo's way. Bo's the type of man that you don't have many left in this country right now teaching. And I admire him for what he does. And Randy, you and I know Bo from a long time ago. Bo learned from the best, and now he's able to teach. But how many of those folks that we're talking about that learn from the best that are able to teach now are in the WWE or in AEW or in TNA or the NWA? There's not that many left.
I agree with a lot of things Derek says on this show. Here's one, and we'll take a vote. Here's one I 100% disagree with. 100% disagree. And Derek May's comment, Pat, I'm going to have you read that.
I feel the heel and face has run its course. The fans pick and choose who they like and don't like. Stone Cold was a heel, and he became an anti-hero. The Rock was a face, and then booed a lot.
I think the core of this business to survive, is the story has been the same since the beginning of mankind. Is good against evil. The hottest babyface I've seen in a long time, and nobody believed he could do it, was Cody Rhodes. I know he had The Rock. I knew he had the bloodlines, but you need that baby face. And the business of WrestleMania, TKO reports this past weekend was the most successful and most profitable events in WWE history. Broke last year's record gate by 78%. The estimated two nights live event gross was $38.5 million.
Wow.
In both.
Did the boys get the payoff at the back door?
I doubt it.
Wine instructions.
Both nights total, they are announcing, and this is TKO numbers, and Dave Meltzer says that's not confirmed by my sources. I think with a company like that's, am I right on this? Just a real quick answer, Michael. If a public held company are not allowed to go in public and put out false information, correct?
That's right. They have to answer. Remember, the owners of the corporation are truly the stockholders, and they have to do a stockholder rendering or report. So, and if they do, that is against SEC, not Southeastern Conference, but Security and Exchange Commission rules, and they could literally be put out of business. So they're not going to do that. I have no idea where Meltzer's getting his information, but I know
making it up, like Jeff Jarrett says. So Uncle Dave makes it up.
Well, I guarantee you, and that 38 million is not just from the gate of people buying tickets or buying pay-per-view. I'm sure that includes all the gimmicks that are sold.
No, that's the gate. Period.
That's just
the two-night gate. Period.
Well, now, we can do the math and break in, and
wouldn't it be a 3-night period because you had
They're not counting that.
They're not counting Monday Night Raw.
They're not counting SmackDown that was a sellout. They were not counting NXT that drew 16,000. And just let me get through these other figures. The viewership was up 41%. They said the merchandise record, separate from those other numbers, was up 26% from last year's record number. The Go Home House and SmackDown was all-time record gate. The all-time NXT show Saturday afternoon, all-time record gate. The all-time, it's funny, they broke the record for the all-time gate on Monday Night Raw, And last Monday, the Monday before, is when they broke that record. And I think they announced this past Monday they set the record great again. It's just unbelievable. Pre-Mania, post-Mania, the whole things, and somebody's in the banking business, in the money business. How can you argue with that? And you can see now Cornette would completely debate me here. And, oh no, it was. Or if you use the inflation calendar and the number of events and all that, there's just so many more ways to make money now. There just is. If it'd still be major money if you do the inflation calculator for 1980 compared to now. They're doing great business, and to me, people's just blind if they don't understand it. Do we like all their matches? Do we like all their promos? And that goes for both companies. No, but to deny that WWE absolutely, and Reese says they say it was viewed by 700 million people. There's no way to deny this success, Pat.
Well, I can tell you if you're talking the 38 million, if you're just talking about the gate, okay. I understood there was roughly 175,000 people in the stadium over the course of the 2 days. I heard that number. It may be wrong. If you did that, that's an average spend of $217, and I think that's probably pretty accurate. I think I've heard ring sides were in the thousands. I know when we went. And we're in the outfield, it was $150. And I don't know that touches. I've been to 3 or 4 national championship football games. I've been to 8 to 10 SEC championship football games. I've been to 20 Alabama, Tennessee football games. I have never an Alabama Auburn game. And NASCAR, I've been to at least 2 times 50 NASCAR races in my life. I have never seen product move like in a WWE event. I've never seen it so outrageously priced either. And I would say 2/3 of the people that show up at the arena leave with merchandise, no question. And a replica belt is $200. So,
have you seen the new replica belts for all the SEC football teams?
No,
I've not
WWE
seen
has done. In fact, Chase. Gosh, I can't think of the young man's name. I used to play with my son in the ring in Nashville. Does the belts for the WWE in Orlando, Florida. He creates those belts, and they have created a wrestling belt, the WWE World Championship belt, but instead of the WWE logo in the middle, it's the Alabama Auburn or the Kentucky or the Tennessee or the LSU logo. And the belt are in the team's colors. And I think they're selling online for $300, but it's incredible. And all the players on the sidelines, you see them break out the belts and all this stuff. The WWE's merchandising wing is a whole different atmosphere than we think. But for them to pull that kind of money for gate only, Randy, whatever happened to the $10 ham and egger?
I don't know, Pat. I mean, Michael, I don't know, but it's absolutely amazing. And normally on shows, I can pull apart. And by the way, Pat, we did our ratings, letter grades, A-F. I've rewatched some of those shows. The only thing I go down on and I was disappointed in, and I think I bought the story, but you have to have it in the ring to back it up. And at the time, I gave a good grade to the Usos. And I think that program has been fine. I lower my grade to a C- for the Usos, and I like both guys. But I felt guilty about saying, what did I give them, a A- or something?
Yeah, you put them over.
Yes, and I put them both over still as great talents. I just think I wouldn't say it was a dud, but a match with that much television time should have been an A, for sure. I don't think anything's overpriced if they're selling out. I think if the people think it's worth the price they're paying, do you agree with that, Michael?
Absolutely.
Sure.
Absolutely. You mentioned the Usos, and the WWE has never been a tag team gravitated corporation. They've always featured the single wrestler. The tag team division has sort of been secondary. I think out of this, when you look at the Usos, the sum of the parts is greater than the individual parts. I think that's the case with the Usos. The thing that surprised me in the whole thing, and just off the cuff on this, Sami Zayn winning beating Gunther for the title. To me, that was the shocker of everything that we saw.
And it was a hell of a match.
It was.
I mean, fantastic.
I saw that.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
And Sami can work.
Yeah. And I was ever surprised. I was so surprised that they would ever go with Sami, not because he couldn't work. It's just because the WWE system under Vince, a guy like that wouldn't pass Vince's airport test. And the airport test is people turn their heads at the airport for a Hulk Hogan or a Brock Lesnar or so many. They just have a impressive roster. I want to talk a little bit, just briefly in a few minutes, about something that bothers me about AEW. Yes, Michael, I am about to be a little negative on AEW. When we come back, the running thread of the show is this interview from Dinner with the King. Thank you, Lance, that Jerry Lawler did his podcast shortly after Lance passed away. And little heads up to Adam, our microphones will be hot, and I'll tell you when to come out of it, because there's quite a bit left. We probably won't get to the whole thing, but some unique, great personal stories from Jerry Lawler. It's Pat Trammell, Michael St. John, Adam Dunn's producing, and I'm Randy Hills. This is Talking Memphis Wrestling. Let's watch.
Only me, but Memphis wrestling and this entire wrestling world, and especially the Memphis community and all that. I mean, the guy was just he was an amazing person.
I've seen a lot of tweets from a lot of, well, obviously fans of Memphis wrestling, but also a lot of people who see your tweets and also see some notable people in professional wrestling, tweet out their respects to Lance Russell, and they're Googling who Lance Russell is, and watching some clips and being introduced to Lance Russell for the first time. But my assessment of Lance Russell, and watching your matches and hearing him call the matches and watching some classic shows on YouTube is that, at least in my assessment, Jerry, he is the Vince Scully of professional wrestling broadcasting. He had that calm voice that can make there's a lot of craziness that happened in Memphis wrestling, Jerry. You know that.
Without a doubt. To
let the viewer know that everything's going to be all right, or just his voice is something that I could Jerry, you lived in Cleveland for a little bit, and you're a Browns and Indians fan, and I know Joe Tate and Herb
Yes.
Score, guys that I used to fall asleep listening to the games, as a little kid. Lance had that voice to where you could, know everything's going to be okay because Lance Russell's is telling you. He had that trustworthiness, and so it's. I know a lot of people are learning of Lance Russell for the first time, and this is why I wanted to do the podcast in general, was to talk about certain people in your life, Jerry, that really affected you. And I know you said it time and time again. I know you'll say it again. Is without Lance Russell, there is no Jerry the King Lawler.
Oh, without a doubt. And I like you said, I realize our podcast is listened to literally all over the world. And so there are a lot of people maybe listening today that have never really heard of Lance Russell. They don't know that Lance Russell was, such an important part in not only my career, but my entire life, and how important he was to Memphis wrestling. But that's the case. I mean, Lance Russell was our our play-by-play commentator in Memphis Wrestling, going back all the way. Before I was way before I was involved. I think Lance said that he started doing wrestling in like 1957.
Wow.
And did it all the way through past 1997. So for 40 plus years, Lance Russell was our play-by-play guy on Memphis Wrestling, and all of the wrestlers that came through Memphis, Lance called their matches, and for me at least, and I don't think there's anybody else that he was this influential in getting their career started, but for me, Lance Russell was solely responsible for me getting introduced into wrestling. I was a high school kid, Treadwell High School, graduate here in Memphis, Tennessee, and my dad and I were big wrestling fans, especially my dad. So, our live wrestling was on every Saturday morning, the TV show every Saturday morning that Lance Russell and Dave Brown were the hosts of, and we would watch it religiously. And then on Monday nights at that time, it was at the Ellis Auditorium. This was a couple years before it moved to the Mid-South Coliseum, but it was at the auditorium downtown. We would have a live event, a live wrestling show every Monday night. And so my dad and I would go to those shows, and then, of course, we'd watch the Saturday morning show with Lance and Dave. And I was, maybe 17, 18 at the time, and I was basically had my mind set on being a commercial artist. I graduated from Treadwell High School. I won a full tuition commercial arts scholarship to the University of Memphis. So I was going to Memphis. At that time, it was called Memphis State University, on an art scholarship. And my intention at the time, I was going to be a graphic artist, or what I really wanted to wind up doing was being an artist for like DC Comics or Marvel Comics or somewhere drawing Superman or Batman in the comic books. And so it was just a natural extension that I've spent most of my time drawing superheroes. And to me at the time, the wrestlers were like superheroes. Jackie Fargo, Tojo Yamamoto, Don and Al Green, the interns, all of these guys were like, when you saw them on TV, that they were huge stars, and these big guys, big muscles. It was like real life superheroes. So I started drawing some pictures of the wrestlers in my spare time, and I remember one Monday I took some of the drawings that I did of the wrestlers down to the auditorium, and showed them to the other fans, and they were all excited. They said, "Man, those are great." Somebody said, "You ought to send some of those into the TV studio." And so I thought, well, there's an idea. I wasn't expecting anything, but I gathered up 6 or 7 of my drawings the next day and put them in an envelope, and I just wrote Lance Russell, because he was the only person I knew, knew of to send them to at the wrestling show. So I wrote Lance Russell, WHBQ Television, 485 South Highland, Memphis, Tennessee, and I put that envelope in the mail, and I don't even know why or what I wasn't really expecting anything, just maybe hoping that they would show the pictures on TV or something. But the following Saturday morning, I turned on the TV show, and as usual, there's Lance and Dave at the desk, and Lance in his classic voice, and what he said every morning. He didn't say hello. It was like he said yellow, everybody. Lance Russell and Dave Brown along ringside. It's this typical thing. But when he came on the air, there's Lance and Dave sitting there, and I saw on the corner of their desk was my pictures, my artwork, and my heart just dropped. I just thought, oh my gosh. They're going to show my pictures. I remember I ran and told my mom, come here. I think they're going to show my pictures on TV. And sure enough, about halfway through the show, Lance says, well, Dave, we've got some artwork sent in by a young fan. He picked my pictures up, looked on the back. He said, young fan, Jerry Lawler is drawing some pictures here. Here, look at that. Here's one of Jackie Fargo and Tojo Yamamoto. And so he showed 3 or 4 of my pictures, and I was like over the moon. I thought, this is the greatest thing that ever happened in my life. But that paled in comparison to when the TV show was over, and I'm sitting there in like the afterglow of, man, my pictures was on TV. All of a sudden, my telephone rang. I answered the phone, and there once again was that incredible voice. Yellow, this is Lance Russell. Is Jerry Lawler there? And I almost fainted. And I said, yes, sir, this is Jerry Lawler. And he said, well, Jerry, everybody really loved your artwork today. And he said, what I was wondering was if you could send us some more pictures next week, which we'd like to show them again next week. And so, I mean, all of a sudden, here's Lance Russell asking me to do some work for him for the TV wrestling that I've been a huge fan of all these years. So what became of that in the next few weeks, I would send them some drawings, and I became you seem like a courtroom reporter, you know, where they won't allow cameras in the courtroom.
Right.
And somebody will draw sketches of what the defendants and the prosecutors look like and everything. Well, at that time, the wrestling company didn't have enough money to send like a camera crew down to the live events to shoot any footage or highlights. So what they asked me to do was draw some sketches that sort of, you know, showed what happened in the match. Like if Tojo Yamamoto had beaten Jackie Fargo, I remember one distinctly that, and then when Lance and Dave came on and started talking about it, they would show, since they didn't have any footage, they would show one of my drawings. And I remember one of Tojo jumping in the air and doing this karate chop on top of Jackie Fargo's head, and Jackie Fargo was just like splitting in half like a piece of cordwood, you know. And so I became like a ringside artist instead of a courtroom artist for the wrestling show. And after about, I don't know, 5 or 6 weeks of sending the pictures in, Lance called me up again and said, hey, Jerry, we'd like for you to come over and actually be on the show. People want to see, you know, what this young guy that's doing these pictures looks like. And he says, plus Jackie Fargo has a proposition for you. And man, here was my chance to actually go to the TV studio, meet Lance Russell, meet Jackie Fargo, and at that time I got to meet all the other wrestlers. And Jackie Fargo, who was the biggest wrestling star in Memphis at the time, he was so big, sort of like me in Memphis now with my club down on Beale Street. Jackie Fargo owned a nightclub along with Eddie Bond, a country music star. They owned a nightclub on Madison Avenue in Memphis. And Jackie said, hey, kid, you know, me and Eddie Bond got this nightclub, Southern Frontier, over here. I was wondering if you want to come over and paint some pictures of me and Eddie Bond on the wall. So I was just thoroughly thrilled. I wound up, you know, getting to go to Jackie Fargo's place. I wound up painting. I bet I painted 100 different caricatures of scenes of him and Eddie Bond all throughout the club of them. And one thing led to another. That's how I got introduced to Jackie Fargo. And instead of this story lasting as long as my career did, I became friends with Jackie, friends with Lance, and the whole wrestling community. I got a job working at the radio station that Eddie Bond worked at, who was partners with Jackie Fargo, and Jackie had a radio show on there that gave me one to another, and that's how I got my foot in the door and how I got involved with professional wrestling, and it was all because of Lance Russell.
Thanks to the great Lance Russell, following up on those great pictures. Pat, I want you to respond, and I don't think that's a secretive story that Lawler just told. It's probably the first time you heard the story from his voice. Your thoughts on the last few minutes here on Talking Memphis Wrestling?
That is absolutely the first time I've heard that from Lawler's voice. I've heard different versions of that and versions of Fargo taking him to Arkansas to kind of teach him a little bit about the business. But, you know, I mean, I heard something about the story and the pictures, but I didn't really know how Lance reached out to him and brought him basically into the business and introduced him around.
Michael, your thoughts on that
If
video?
you've seen Lawler, and I'm sure everybody has seen Lawler's work, I mean, he is to this day an extremely talented artist, and could have had the career he was working toward.
Well, in 1977, when I was programming WMPS radio in Memphis, we had Jerry on the afternoon show with our afternoon disc jockey, Ron Jordan. And I was in the studio when Jerry told that story on the air. The radio station that he did not identify there was KWAM in West Memphis, Arkansas. It had a K call letter, KWAM. Transmitter was in that Delta land that you get after you come over the bridge. You have about a 5-mile, 6-mile stretch of nothing. And that's where the transmitter was, because anytime you put an AM transmitter in the middle of a field of water or a field of wet, it propagates further signal-wise because of the radials that are buried in the ground. And anyway, that's a great story, and it's true. I've heard him say this is the second or third time I've heard him tell it, and it's it's right on the money. But I think it's very influential how Lance and Jackie really sort of created the Jerry Lawler persona. And if you think about Jerry's personality, both behind the mic and in the ring, it's a little bit of Fargo, but also it's a little bit of Lance.
Here's the comment, and we have new people watching, and also our regulars. Shane is with us and said, y'all have any Roughhouse Fargo stories? And I don't really have stories. He watched a tag match with him and Jackie, and the Roughhouse beat on Jackie more than others. I did meet Roughhouse, wasn't around him a whole lot, so Michael may be able to have more response about. I love Roughhouse, but I was a young kid by the time he quit coming. And so I didn't meet him as a young kid, but I thought he has the all-time record house in Louisville, Kentucky. They drew a ton of money. Roughhouse was the great. If anybody that does not know Michael, explain to him what Roughhouse's name was and what he did when he wasn't wrestling for Memphis Wrestling.
Let me play a little Jimmy Cornette history on you here, and Jimmy knows the story, and I was privy to the story as well. When Fargo started out, and Nick brought him in here from New York and brought him into Nashville, they had sold out Madison Square Garden, where the team was Jackie and Don Fargo, and they were not brothers, but they teamed as brothers. And Jackie was the flamboyant one; he created the strut and everything, and Don was Popeye the Sailor Man. He was a rough, tough, dockside worker, talked out of the side of his mouth kind of thing. And Jackie did all the talking and getting them over. Well, they came into Nashville, and they brought in Sonny Fargo because Don had gotten into some trouble. Don wasn't happy. He had family in New York. He didn't want to come to South. So Jackie brought in his brother. And as I understand it, they are true brothers. They are blood brothers. And they called him Sonny Fargo. So the team that came out that came to be that got over in the Mid-South territory or the Nashville-Memphis territory was Jackie and Sonny Fargo. Well, at some point in that run, Sonny was living over in the Carolinas and got homesick and wanted to go back home. And he'd been in the area for 2 or 3 years. And anyway, Jackie started doing some wrestling as a single, and then he would pick up other tag team partners like Mario Milano and Alex Perez and some of these other guys. But Sonny Fargo went back to the Carolinas and became a referee.
That's right.
For Jim Crockett Promotions. And he was his number one referee. Well, when they wanted to bring in, now fast forward into the 70s, and Jerry Jarrett was booking, and he wanted Fargo to bring in a tag team partner or whatever, they created this persona of Nuthouse Fargo, Roughhouse Fargo. And the idea was that Jackie's brother went away, not because of his own volition or because he was homesick. He went away because he was committed to a mental institution in North Carolina. And so Jackie would check him out of the mental institution and bring him in when there was a fight that he just didn't feel like he could handle. So he'd bring in Nuthouse Fargo. And the whole persona with Sonny Fargo was he was a nut. And I'll add just a quick little personal. In 1978, I'm in Nashville, Tennessee, and Fargo's in the main event, and I think he's against Tojo and whoever Tojo's partner was at the time. It may have been Phil Hickerson. And anyway, they come in, and he says, I do an interview with Jackie, and he says, next week I'm going to go to Carolina. I'm driving the car to Carolina. I'm going to check out my brother out of the crazy house, out of the institution, and he'll be with me next Wednesday night here at the fairgrounds. Well, the place sells out. And this guy, I go in the dressing room, and I meet this guy. And when I first walked in, he kayfabed, and Jackie says, no, he's fine. He's fine. So he introduced himself. And so I'm sitting there between him, and we're talking and asking questions. And I said, now, Jackie, whatever happened to your brother, Sonny? And Jackie looks over at Roughhouse, and he looks at me, and all of a sudden he starts laughing, and Roughhouse starts laughing. I said, did I say something wrong? He said, Michael, That's my brother. That's Roughhouse Fargo, is Sonny Fargo. And I almost passed out. One of the most embarrassing moments I ever had. But I'll tell you, anytime they wanted to bring something wild and crazy into the matches, into the storyline, the personal issues, the family issues, the Roughhouse Fargo it worked every time.
It was a big draw for Nick in Birmingham. Big draw.
Great input from Team Hales. Michael's doing great. Adam's doing great. And Pat's here, and he's great as usual, doing a great job staying awake tonight because it's not midnight on Saturday night. By the way, Saturday night we broke a all-time viewership record. Then Sunday night we beat that. So the WWE is not the only people breaking records, but we didn't make that sort of money because we would have all retired if we did that sort of thing. I wanted to go back to WrestleMania because I try to get in everything we promote we're going to happen. I'm just going to go over real quick both nights of WrestleMania, and Adam, if you will back me up by graphics with that, and you may have to look which picture. There's a generic WrestleMania, and some of the matches we have pictures as well as we go to night one of WrestleMania. The attendance that night, 72,543, Triple H open night number one. WrestleMania coming to Philadelphia, and it's a great show. The first match was a women's world title match, one of the best women's matches I've ever heard in my life. Rhea Ripley over Becky Lynch. I gave that a A+. It was fantastic. The second match was a tag team ladder match for the undisputed tag team titles. I like this. Didn't give it a grade. I gave it a B. And the finish, I would have given an A. It was Undisputed Tag Team Championship. It was what they did. They had the SmackDown belts in one ladder and the Raw belts on the other three. And Grayson got one set of belts. A unlikely team the last several months called Awesome Truth, and that is Miz and R-Truth. They love that R-Truth. And I was tickled to death that 52-year-old R-Truth gets his WrestleMania moment. I give that a B. Then Rey Mysterio and Andrade over Escobar and Dominic Mysterio, and I gave that a B-. I changed the Jimmy Uso match to a C, maybe even a C-, and that's, to me, the most disappointing match of the night. Bianca Belair, Jade Cargill, and Naomi beat Damage Control. That was a highlight of Jade, who is man, she looks like $1 million. She's still green. I gave that a C. Intercontinental title, Sammy beat Gunther. I gave that an A+. Rock and Roman beat Seth and Cody. I gave it an A+++. It was my second favorite match of the two-night WrestleMania. As you see that picture right now, that was the main event. Cody and his partner Seth freaking Rollins against The Rock and Roman Reigns. Just a hell of a match and a clean finish that leads to a match for the world title. It might be next year. Who knows it'll be. But as my review of night one, comment first from you, Pat. They changed some since the other night.
It has changed some since the other night. I'm not going to be as harsh on the brothers going at it as you were. It was not my favorite match. I thought they set up the Saturday night with the tag team match perfectly. Cody in the middle of the ring, you know, 1, 2, 3, beat up on his own. I thought the first night there's a couple matches I really didn't care for that much. I didn't like the Bianca Belair match. I particularly liked the Rey Mysterio match. I thought that was good storytelling.
I want to correct or just disagree with Richard Hood. He says R-Truth was the first black NWA champion. I think that would be Ron Simmons. Am I right, Michael?
I believe you're right. I think R-Truth was not the first. Did Tony? They never put the belt on Tony Atlas back in the day, did they?
No, they did not.
Not at all.
Can I add something real quick to this?
Yeah, that's what we're all about here. Yes.
Brian Solomon's one of my favorite wrestling authors out there. He wrote a book about the Sheik that I thought was just absolutely fabulous. And he's got an interesting take on this. Cody Rhodes joins Buddy Rogers, Ric Flair, and AJ Styles as the only professional wrestlers in history to own both the NWA and the WWE World Heavyweight Championship.
Say that again.
Buddy Rogers, Ric Flair, Cody Rhodes, and AJ Styles, only wrestlers in history to own the NWA and the WWE championships.
Now, Cody was, I think, Pat, were you were in Nashville when Cody lost that NWA title. Am I correct on that?
That's right. He lost it to Nick Aldis, and that's when he went with the Young Bucks, and they did their deal. So they did their. That's when they got together and did the All-In match. And I'm looking up, Laza, I do know Ron Simmons was WCW champion, and I don't know if they were affiliated with the NWA at that time.
We're going to do night 2, 72,755 people. And Adam, if you look, because we have things, we have graphics that match several of these matches. The opening match was the world title. Drew McIntyre defeated Seth Rollins in 14 minutes, 30 seconds. Then Drew had an angle with CM Punk, and I thought that was interesting as well. And finally, Punk swept the leg and ran him into the table, and here comes the guy Damian Priest to cash in Money in the Bank. I give that match with Drew and Seth that went 14 minutes and 30 seconds A, and I think I give the Punk Priest cash in all that thing, I give it a high A. Then the 6-man Philly Street fight with the Pride over Final Testament with Bubba Ray refereeing, I give that a C-. LA Knight and AJ Styles, LA Knight won in 12:30. I gave that a B+. Then a triple threat match for the U.S. titles, 17 minutes and 30 seconds, A++. Unbelievable. Logan Paul, Kevin Owens, and Randy Orton. Just absolutely fantastic. Logan Paul gets this business quicker than just about anybody I've ever seen. Jeff Jarrett would be an exception. Brian Christopher would be an exception. These were second generation wrestlers. The women's title that Bayley beat Io Sky in 14:30. Then I gave that a B+. Then Cody beats Roman Reigns in 33 minutes. Now, the tag the night before with Rock and Roman went 45 minutes. Cody beat Owen in 33:15. Cody beat Roman in 33:15 to win the title. The notes I have is great entrances, a big fight feel. Brandy was with Cody. Great start of match. False finish. Roman and Cody back and forth. And here came the run-ins with Jimmy Uso, Jey Uso, then had a great spot, a big spear off the stage. That was great into 2 cross roads. Then about a count of 2 interference. Here comes Cena. Then Roman out. Then on Roman, then Rock out, and Rock bottom Cena, then Seth, then the Taker, and then Taker did his spot on Cena, then took on Roman, and it was just great. Then back in the ring, it was 3 crossroads, 1, 2, 3. I give it A plus 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 plus, because that's what the people paid to see that particular night. That was end of kind of chapter 1 of the last year's program, or of 2-year program, that was absolutely fantastic. So Pat, we'll have you comment on that, and I'll get some graphics up as we talk about that.
Well, it obviously, I mean, it had been building for that 2 nights, and it was a great match, and yeah, everybody that all the run-ins and all that was that somehow professional wrestling is, and other sports talk about it. I'm going to talk about this as a sport. Professional wrestling honors the people that came before. The Rock, Taker, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and it makes it better. Now your triple threat match you were talking about, that I've gone back and rewatched that. And the interesting thing about that is those are 3 guys, and this is more to your pal Logan Paul. Those are 3 guys with totally different bodies, totally different wrestling styles, and they made it work. And they made it work great all over the ring. So good match there for sure. I did not care for the street fight match. I thought that was a Snoop Dogg commercial, but the Intercontinental Championship match with Gunther and Sami Zayn, I thought was one of the better matches of the evening.
Big night, and we're showing some of the matches that took place, and right now I want to bring in Michael St. John to see if he agrees or disagrees with my comments from night 2 of WrestleMania, and just go ahead and any of the matches that really stood out to you, just mention it and I'll back it up by graphics.
Well, first of all, I think you're right on. I don't like triple threat matches. I don't like 8-man tag matches. I think things get too convoluted and get too stupid. I like matches where you have a finish, or if there's not a finish, there's something exciting that happens at the end that leads you on to something later on, whether it's a run-in, whether it's a gimmick that cheap shots somebody, whatever the case may be. The only thing that I saw that does bother me, and it's just an overall thing in wrestling these days, it's sort of like the transfer portal in college football, is I don't think that in this day and time I think we've lost in this day and time the meaning of a finishing move. When a wrestler puts on a finishing move, his patented move on his opponent, the match is over. 1, 2, 3.
The rules will change. That bothers me a bit. Not a bit.
It doesn't?
No, because now if the opening match does 30 things, that does bother me. But in a match, like a major match, like Cody and Roman, like Rock and Cody, that doesn't bother me a bit. That does not bother me a bit, and it didn't bother the 70,000 people in the audience either, and the millions and millions of people at home.
I get that, but it's such a foreign departure from what we grew up and were taught and learned about wrestling. And you look at some of the finishes today, Randy, I dare say some of the finishes today look a hell of a lot more diabolical and critical injury type than they ever were when in our day, the abdominal stretch, when Dennis Hall got the abdominal stretch on an opponent, the opponent
It's
tapped
over.
out. Yeah,
It's over.
and nowadays that's not the case.
That doesn't mean it would be the case now. Abdominal stretch with what the people have seen the last 15 years, the people would fart at it. It would absolutely fart at it.
So you're thinking that what happened in the main event there were 4 finishing maneuvers in the main event before the finish. There were 4 patented, this is over because this guy has done this to an opponent and it's over, it's done. And yet there were 4 false finishes with high impact finish maneuvers or moves. And then before they had the finish of the match, if there was anything that took away from that match, in my eye, that's what it was.
Absolutely. I think I've seen Jerry Lawler have people, the Road Warriors for one. It has to be the right situation and the right wrestler. I've seen wrestlers kick out of Jerry Lawler's pile driver. Road Warrior Hawk for one. Now the business is involved. It's different. I can't argue with the crowd reaction. I can't argue with the money this has drawn. I'm thinking the story, not the story, but the ladder where wrestling will end up. We're not there yet. It's not peaking. I don't want to sound like, and I've said this 100 times, like an old timer, because remember, radio is much different now than when you started, correct?
Yes, but the premise is not, but the way we execute it is.
Well, we're going to agree to disagree on this. I think in wrestling, you cannot be stuck in the past. And I know I'm in the minority here. I also know here I'm the only one that's worked full-time and booked a wrestling company. I absolutely, the biggest heat, I remember back in the day, there's people that said all the fabulous ones because they play that music and do this and they strut and the funny and all that, they're going to kill the territory, followed by the biggest run in 1983 Memphis Wrestling ever did. I mean, ever did for sure.
Well, I thought and again, I thought the way they developed the story, I thought the sell for the story, I thought the payoff on Friday Night SmackDown, I thought everything was, all the pieces were in place. And to be honest with you, after Friday Night SmackDown, I said to myself, and I didn't text you guys, I said to myself, they're going to put this thing on Cody, because there was no way they could not put it on Cody and keep the momentum of where they were. They put it on Cody, and now the momentum goes higher. But I was not a fan of the fact that Taker's move, Cena's move, Rock's move didn't wipe out who they were supposed to wipe out.
And I think if you would have taken out those moves, Undertaker's choke slam, the Rock bottom, everything, the biggest pops of the night, the biggest reaction that led to the right finish and the right reaction. I guarantee you, if the moves they did in the finishing sequence didn't happen, they wouldn't got as much pop. I guarantee you. Guarantee you.
Did you guys see Monday Night Raw last night? The whole thing?
Yes.
I thought, and I saw part of it, I saw live, part of it I had to rewatch. I thought Monday Night Raw was a little long in the tooth, if that's a phrase, meaning it went on too long when they were trying to set different things up. To me, Monday Night Raw after WrestleMania, and I'm sure to keep that momentum, it would have had to be, gosh only knows what it had to have been. But
competition against Purdue and UConn. I hadn't seen the numbers.
I haven't either, but all I know is I thought Monday Night Raw drug. even though they were starting to set up new things.
I thought it was the perfect way to follow WrestleMania. I thought there's a couple of things about the Rock Cody thing at the end. I can agree that I think what they're trying to do in that segment is not shoot their wad, as you said the right word. They were trying to plant seeds to build for stuff, and I think that last segment, I agree with the fact I think that went, but I thought the show was fresh, and I think what they didn't overshoot angles. I think. Pat, did you see that show?
I did not. I didn't.
Michael Barr says Monday Night Raw looked better in wrestling than it has in years. And
I think he's referring to the set. The set was different. They didn't have the ramp. They didn't have the Jumbotron.
Do you know why that was the case?
Yeah, because they were still tearing it down from WrestleMania.
No, that was a different building.
Yeah, it was. Like I said, they were still coming over from that arena is just down the street from the stadium.
The reason was reported by the WWE, and it makes sense to me that they had it configured small, bigger, but then there was a big last minute demand in tickets, so they scaled back on production areas and staging areas and that sort of thing, because they wanted to get every dime they had. Every dime they had. Oh, we have 4 minutes. Let's do one little quick. Go ahead, Michael.
Just real quick, Randy, and I want your opinion on this. Do you think at this point in time that the WWE needs to sort of reset and start another long storyline, or you think the storylines are going to get shorter because of the fact that they've had probably the biggest blow off of any storyline in the history of professional wrestling?
Well, it's going naturally after the blow off. It's going to go down, but I've seen you do a blow off and then not only goes down, and you've seen it too, it collapsed. I mean, it's the drizzling. You know what? I don't think that will happen at all. And I just have confidence in that booking team and the creative team. And I have confidence in the stories they're telling. I think that Logan Paul will get better. I think Cody Rhodes will get better. And another thing we have not mentioned at all is this isn't the last of Roman Reigns. What's going to happen when Roman comes back? Is the bloodline going to turn on him? Are they going to accept Rock as a leader? There's so many things. Is Roman going to be switched babyface, or is Rock going to be switched babyface? I don't think so, because I think Rock probably smells money with Cody and The Rock, and Rock has that clean finish 1, 2, 3 there for sure.
And to that line of thinking, I have heard, and it's been rumored on the internet, of course, but I have heard also, and Saturday night I heard the fact that the shoot on the Roman Reigns deal is partially because that he's battling leukemia again. Is that a shoot? Is that a work?
That's what I've read on the internet. However, nothing credible. Obviously, leukemia, that can happen, that it does come back. If it's come back, I don't think he'd have been cleared to wrestle. Do you, WrestleMania or not? Because, man, they're all in to the medical. They're all in there in that company for sure. So that I don't think, I hope and pray that it's not true, because this Roman Reigns, that's another thing with him off TV for several weeks. He's been a big part of the last 2 years.
The last thing is that the thing that was making the rounds today is apparently tomorrow night on AEW, Tony's going to come out and address some kind of interview. And I haven't heard the interview. I've heard about it, that CM Punk did with somebody, but Tony is going to come out and answer that on TV. Isn't that the deal?
No, that's not the deal. It was a deal on the MMA Hour. Punk, we're going to go over a minute, and we won't. I'm sorry, we'll show more from that Lawler video later. So this is what happened. Punk says the things a lot of people have said. Tony's not a leader, blah, 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 blah. And the Young Bucks, they're making, and I don't understand doing an angle with somebody they're not going to wrestle. That's silly with me. And I think the company and the Young Bucks want to respond to Punk in some sort of way. I'm going to hold my opinion because just on paper, that sounds like the stupidest idea I've ever seen in my life. But it's the Young Bucks that's going to present that video, and the Young Bucks going to talk over. I hope the Jeff Jarretts of the world and the Arn Andersons of the world and all the veteran people, the Jerichos and the Christians and the Adam Copelands of the world, talk some sense into Tony. But it's not Tony doing it; it's the Young Bucks doing it.
It's the executive vice presidents.
Yes,
EVPs. Well, last week, and one thing I want to shine some light on AEW. I thought Adam Copeland's soliloquy in the middle of the ring last week was spot on. I thought that was one of the best segments I've ever seen on AEW because he basically said, we've got to come together. It was one of those, it was almost like a pep talk, but not only to the fans, but I think part of it was aimed at the locker room as well. But I thought Edge did a fabulous job of that.
Liza, you say AEW presents cheap heat. Most people even doesn't know what that means. Cheap heat back in the day, I tell you what cheap heat was when the heel in the audience says, "Hey, fat woman, shut up," or "Hey, ugly kid." That's cheap heat. Now, if this is true, the Bucks are going to present, the Bucks going to do the thing. I don't call that cheap heat. I don't think it'll be successful heat, but it's not cheap heat. They're taking it. First of all, I think in their minds, just like Adam Copeland did that whole thing that you were just putting over last week to defend Tony Khan and defend the company and defend against the Eric Bischoffs and Jim Cornettes of the world that they feel take cheap shots at them. I think that's what Adam Copeland purpose of that was. Again, I honestly think, because most wrestling fans don't care. I think that was a waste of TV time, even though I thought it was presented great. Real quick, Pat, final comments. Today's show here on the 9th day, the day after the eclipse, it was conspiracy. They said the world would end, and I see both of y'all are still in Alabama. Final word.
Still in Alabama. We'll be the last one to go, I guess. It's been an interesting couple of weeks. I think we'll see in the days to come whether the question I have is, can Cody carry that promotion? And I'm not sure of that. But anyway, we'll see what happens with all that. And I enjoyed the time with Lawler about Lance. We can do that forever.
I think about Cody, it's real simple, Pat. Time will tell. You got to prove it.
That's right.
You got to prove it. Michael, final words. We're 3 minutes over for the first time in a long time.
One of my favorite quotes in a long time of all time is, "What do you do for an encore when your first act is suicide?" So I guess we're just sort of gonna figure that out. There is breaking news on the Alabama front, Pat. I wanted to make you aware of this. Sammy's Go-Go in Birmingham has been sued by the dancers over not being paid minimum wage. And I always thought those dancers made a lot of dollar bills.
I think it needs a recapitalization and some new management, and I'm happy to back you in that as a financial partner.
I'll only take that. I'll only take that if Randy Hales will come down once a month and put on a wrestling show live from Sammy's Go-Go.
There we go.
Anything else, Michael?
Love you guys. Thank you, Pat, so much. And thank you, Randy, for allowing me to even be a part of this. You're awesome. Thank you so much.
Y'all are all great. And the great legendary panel of Pat Trammell and Michael St. John missed my man Chris Ellis, and Adam Dunn was here producing, and we produced it. And we had a fantastic Joe, and I hope Team Hales, who was out in droves, enjoyed it. Till next Monday night for the Power Hour. Then next Tuesday night, we will be right here for Talking Memphis Wrestling. Until then, and for Lance Russell and Jerry Lawler, who helped us out on this program today, good night, everybody.
From TV5 Wrestling Action, 11 o'clock Saturday.
Talking Memphis Wrestling with Randy Hales and special guests.